Hey there, and welcome to the official audiobook of Frozen for 8 minutes. I'm so glad you're here. This is a gripping YA psychological thriller about a teenager who dies for exactly 8 minutes and comes back with the terrifying ability to see when others will die. What follows is a race against time, a mystery wrapped in silence, and a truth no one is ready to face. So get comfortable, plug in, and prepare to lose yourself in a chilling story where every second counts. Now, let's begin Frozen for 8 minutes. Published by Autumn Wells. For the ones who stayed and the ones who didn't. Time doesn't stop, except when it does. They say when you die, your life flashes before your eyes. But that's not true. At least it wasn't for me. When I died, there were no memories. Just cold. Just silence. Like the world was holding its breath. And when I came back, everything had changed. Not the people, not the town. Time. Time had changed. And it had started whispering to me. The last thing you feel. Drowning doesn't feel like dying. It feels like forgetting. The cold erases everything, your name, your body, the sound of your own heartbeat. And just when it should end, it doesn't. It stretches into something else. Something in between. That's where I went. And when I came back, I brought something with me. Something no one else can see. The moment everyone will die.
Chapter 1. The Drowning. They told him not to run out alone. The ice hadn't settled. The sun was falling, and it was too cold to be out without gloves. He ran anyway. The lake wasn't far, just down the trail past the iron fence, where the trees thinned and the town disappeared behind you. His sister had waved from the porch, wrapped in a blanket, yelling something he didn't catch. His breath came out in clouds, his heartbeat thudding louder than the crunch of frost underfoot. He didn't know why he was running. Maybe to feel something. Maybe to forget everything that felt like too much. Then the world cracked. It happened fast. The ice beneath his feet gave a single sound, not a snap, not a shatter, just a deep, hollow pop, like something exhaling from below. He didn't even have time to scream. His foot went through, and then his chest, his arms, his head. The cold didn't bite. It punched. It stole everything at once. Sound, air, gravity. 1 second, he was upright. The next, he was gone. Water closed over him like a door slamming shut. Panic came after stillness. At first, he froze, literally. The shock locked every part of him in place. He didn't even kick. He just sank, eyes wide, watching the blue-black world blur above him. Then instinct took over. His limbs thrashed, clawing at the water, desperate for the surface. But he couldn't find it. There was no up. Only cold. Only darkness. The ice had swallowed him completely. He tried to scream and water filled his throat. His arms hit nothing. His chest burned. He kicked harder, twisted, turned. No light. No exit. Just thousands of tiny bubbles spiraling away like stars. Then came the silence. Not quite. Silence. It pressed against him, inside him, like the world itself had paused. No heart, no breath, no thought, just space, stillness, something ancient and waiting, and memories. His sister's laugh, her voice calling his name, their blanket fort in the living room years ago, her hand gripping his when he had nightmares, the way she had looked at him this morning, the way she said, "Be careful." He reached for her in his mind, but his arms wouldn't move. He let go, not out of choice, but because something deeper than fear took over, something like surrender. The cold pulled him tighter, his thoughts quieted, his body stilled. He wasn't sure if this was dying. Maybe it was just forgetting. Maybe it was both. Time passed. Or maybe it didn't. Time didn't exist down here. Or maybe it was the only thing that did. When they pulled him out, blue, breathless, bones like ice, the world came rushing back in shouts and sirens. He gasped on the bank, lungs clawing for air. His chest heaved, his eyes opened. Above the shoulder of the paramedic kneeling over him, something flickered. A faint red glow. Numbers. 005217. They blinked once, then vanished. He tried to speak, but all that came out was a ragged cough and the taste of lake water. They said he was dead for 8 minutes, but no one asked what came back.
Chapter 2. The Numbers. The world came back in fragments. A beeping sound first, faint and repetitive. Then the brightness, artificial and flat. A cold pressure under his tongue. Distant voices. The air smelled like metal and bleach, and something sweet that didn't belong. He blinked. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. His chest ached like it had been hit with a hammer. Needles in his arm, tubes taped to his skin, machines surrounding him like vultures. "Hey! Hey, he's awake!" A nurse appeared at his side. Too bright, too fast. Her words were soft, but the alarm in her eyes gave her away. "You're okay," she said, smoothing the hair from his forehead. "You're in the hospital. You fell into the lake, but you're safe now." He didn't speak. His throat burned. His lips were cracked. Then the door opened, and the room filled with warmth. His sister ran in before the nurse could stop her. Her hair was a mess. Her eyes were red and swollen. She didn't say anything, just wrapped her arms around him, holding on like she was still afraid he'd slip away again. He let her. "You were gone," she whispered. "For 8 minutes. They said your heart, it stopped." He nodded slowly. He didn't know what to say. His mom came next, followed by his dad, the doctor, more wires, explanations, medical words that didn't make sense. Something about shock, cold water reflex, lucky to be alive, no brain damage, miracle. But no one mentioned the numbers, the ones he saw again that night. They hovered over the nurse who checked his vitals. Just for a second. 190403. Faint red digits.
like digital clock numbers projected from nowhere. They blinked, then disappeared. He didn't ask about them. He just stared at her. She smiled like everything was normal. Later, the same thing happened with the janitor pushing a mop down the hallway. 2 days, 11 hours, 13 minutes. He rubbed his eyes, thinking it was a trick of the light, but the numbers didn't stop. He saw them over the security guard, the old man in the waiting room, the surgeon who signed his release papers. He began to realize something was terribly, quietly wrong. The hospital let him go the next day. He didn't talk much on the ride home. His sister sat beside him in the back seat, scrolling through her phone, humming to herself. Her voice, light and familiar, felt like the only normal thing in the world. He looked at her and saw it, floating above her head, small, quiet, unmoving. 3 days, 22 hours, 47 minutes. He blinked. It didn't go away. He looked at her again. Her fingers tapped her phone screen. She didn't notice anything. He looked back at the number. It stayed perfectly still, counting down.
Chapter 3. Denial. The numbers had to be a hallucination. That was the only explanation he let himself believe. Maybe it was oxygen loss, or trauma, or the shock of nearly dying. His brain must have taken a hit somewhere in those 8 minutes. It made sense. People saw things after accidents, heard voices, remembered things that never happened. He Googled it that night from his bed, under the covers, his sister already asleep across the room in her makeshift nest of pillows and blankets. Visual disturbances after near-death experience. Post-resuscitation delusions. Temporal disassociation. The words made him feel better, like they could explain it away. He told himself he was fine, that it was just his mind scrambling for balance, that it would fade. But it didn't. The next morning, the numbers were still there. They floated above strangers on the sidewalk, above the woman across the street walking her dog, above the teenager at the corner store. Always red, always still. Some red days, some red years. Some flickered faster, hours, minutes. He tried not to look. He kept his head down, avoided faces. And most of all, he didn't look at his sister. He couldn't. Her number haunted him. 3 days and counting. He had checked twice since they got home, hoping it might have changed. But it hadn't, not even by a second. It sat there, above her like a warning only he could see, and it terrified him. Still, he didn't say anything. What would he say? That the drowning gave him a supernatural countdown app in his brain? That he was seeing death clocks hanging over everyone like cursed halos? He couldn't even say it out loud to himself, so he buried it. He tried to act normal. Ate cereal with her that morning, laughed at her stupid impression of their gym teacher, said he was fine when their mom checked on him for the 5th time. He even played a round of that dumb racing game she always begged him to lose on purpose. But he wasn't fine. That night, long after the house went quiet, he snuck out of bed and stood in his sister's doorway. She was curled up under her blanket, her breathing soft and slow. The number still hovered there.
2 days, 18 hours, 9 minutes. He stared at it for a long time, as if maybe, if he focused hard enough, it would blink and reset. It didn't. He pressed his palms into his eyes and whispered, "Stop." He wasn't sure who he was talking to. His brain, the countdown, God. But there was no answer. Only the red glow in the dark.
Chapter 4. Testing the Gift. He didn't sleep that night. Not really. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw it again. The number above her head, quiet and red and so heartbreakingly certain. 2 days, 18 hours, 9 minutes. Now less. Always less. By morning, he had made a decision. If the numbers were real, if they meant what he feared, then someone, somewhere, had to reach 0. And if that happened, he would know for sure. The plan wasn't complicated. He took his phone, zipped up his jacket, and left the house under the excuse of a walk. His mom didn't argue. She was just happy he was moving again. He walked through town with one purpose. Watch, wait, see what happens. At the grocery store entrance, he leaned on a railing and stared at people coming and going. A man with a cane, red glow, 4 years. A tired woman with a crying baby, 12 days. An old woman in a scarf, 47 minutes. He followed her. Not close enough to scare her, but far enough to keep her in view. She moved slowly, dragging her cart down the sidewalk toward the bus stop. The timer ticked. 41 minutes. 35. 28. He sat on a bench across the street, heart pounding. He didn't know what he wanted. For it to be wrong, or for it to be right. He checked again. 000902. The wind picked up. Leaves skittered across the pavement. The woman took a seat on the bus stop bench, holding a paper bag to her chest. 7 minutes. 6. 5. Then the bus arrived. She stood up slowly, took one step forward, and collapsed. No warning, no sound. She just crumpled to the ground like her body had run out of time. Someone screamed. A man rushed to her side. A passerby called for help. He didn't move. He watched. The timer had vanished. Back home, he stared at his hands, wondering why they were shaking. The numbers were real. Undeniably, horribly real. And his sister's countdown had just hit 2 days, 3 hours, 57 minutes.
Chapter 5. Guilt and Ghosts. The first time she saved him, they were kids. It was summer, the kind that made the air feel soft and endless. They'd been at the public pool, surrounded by noise and sunlight. He thought he could hold his breath longer than anyone, dove too deep, stayed too long. By the time he realized he couldn't make it back up, someone else already had. She was only 9, barely strong enough to drag him to the surface, but she did it. She screamed for help, hit his chest with tiny fists, cried louder than the lifeguard's whistle. And when he finally gasped and opened his eyes, the first thing he saw was her, soaking wet, furious, shaking, hugging him so hard it hurt. He never forgot that look on her face, like she couldn't decide whether to punch him or cry harder. Now, years later, he sat on the floor outside her bedroom, staring at the faint glow beneath the door. Her nightlight, still shaped like a fox, still flickering. He pressed his forehead to the wood and whispered, "You don't even know you're running out of time." Inside, she shifted in her blankets. He held still, listening to the soft rhythm of her breath. The guilt weighed more than the cold ever had. Why had he gone to the lake that day? Why had he left her behind? She had tried to stop him. She always did. He just never listened, never slowed down. Now she was slipping through his fingers like breath in freezing water. He pulled his knees to his chest. His head throbbed. He didn't tell anyone about the woman who collapsed, the one with 47 minutes. He didn't even write it down. But the image wouldn't leave him. The way the light went out of the air around her, the way people rushed in too late. It would be the same with his sister, unless he did something. But what? He didn't know how to stop time. He didn't know where this power came from or why it chose him. He didn't even know what the numbers meant beyond the obvious. Were they fate? A warning? A test? All he knew was the number above her head was smaller every time he looked. He closed his eyes and made himself a promise. He would not let her be next. Chapter 6. The Clue. It started with a cough. A kid from school, just someone in the hallway. Pale, hoodie pulled over his head, face flushed. He looked awful, like he hadn't slept or eaten in days. The countdown over his head read 00831. 8 minutes. The number didn't scare him anymore. What scared him was how casually people passed by it, like it wasn't glowing, like they couldn't see it counting down second by second, like it wasn't screaming in red. He watched the kid slip into the nurse's office, shoulders hunched. 6 minutes. Something inside him moved. He followed, stepping quietly, heart pounding. He stopped just before the door, listening. Inside, the nurse was speaking in a calm voice. Nothing sounded urgent. Then she called someone, asked if she could get the boy's father to pick him up, said he didn't have a fever, just exhaustion. She sounded kind, normal. 4 minutes. The boy coughed again. Then something strange happened. The nurse offered him a pill, said it might help. She stepped into the cabinet, poured him some water, and the number above his head blinked. He rubbed his eyes. 00831 became 00926. He stared at it. The number went up. Not much, just under a minute, but it changed. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926. 00926
The boy sat up a little straighter, drank the water, took the pill, thanked her. And the number moved again. 00941. Not a full reset, but something had shifted. He backed away from the door, mind spinning. It could change. Time could stretch. It wasn't a fixed clock. Not always. That night, he wrote it down in a notebook. Numbers can move. Something helped him. Small shift. Maybe choices matter. He stared at those words for a long time. His sister's number hadn't moved since he saw it. Not once. But maybe it didn't have to stay that way. Maybe he could stretch her time. Find the right trigger, the right moment. Something to bend fate, just enough. For the first time since the lake, he felt something flicker inside him. Not fear, not panic. Hope.
Chapter 7. The Other One. He didn't expect her to speak to him. They were both sitting in the school library, not because they cared about books, but because the library was quiet, and sometimes quiet was the only thing that helped. She sat at the corner table, hoodie drawn tight, sleeves covering her hands. She had that look, like she didn't want to be seen, but also didn't want to disappear completely. He'd seen her before, knew her name once, couldn't remember it now. He didn't look at the number above her head. He was too scared it would be small, too scared it would be 0. She glanced up suddenly, like she felt him thinking. "You see it, don't you?" she said. His breath caught. He hadn't said a word. "The glow," she added, voice low. "The way the air feels different, right before something happens." He said nothing, just stared. "How long were you gone?" she asked. His throat tightened. He didn't know how she knew, didn't know if she was guessing or if something inside her just knew. 8 minutes, he said finally. She nodded slowly, looked down at her sleeves. 3 minutes, 46 seconds. That's how long I was dead. The silence that followed was heavier than anything in the room. "I came back wrong," she said. "I feel things now, but only right before they go, right before they die. It's like their fear jumps into me, like I get flooded." He swallowed. "So you don't see numbers?" "No, just feelings, strong ones, the kind that don't belong to me." She looked up, eyes sharp. "But you do see something, I mean." He hesitated, then nodded. "Time. How long they have left." She let out a breath. "I knew it. I could feel it in you. That weight." They sat in silence for a while. The buzz of the library lights, the quiet shuffle of someone turning a page nearby. Then she leaned forward. "You think you're the only one carrying it. You're not. There are others. Others like us. Not many, but a few. I've read about them. Looked through hospital records, emergency room revivals, kids who drowned, car crashes, people who were gone and came back different. Do they all get something?" "Not all. Some just die and come back empty. But others, yeah, pieces of something stick to them. Like the other side doesn't let go completely." He looked down at his hands. "I thought I was going insane." She smiled faintly.
You are. We both are. But we're right about it. He wanted to believe that. Needed to. Then her voice dropped lower, her tone darker. If you're seeing someone close to you, someone whose number's almost out. He nodded slowly. His heart tightened. She didn't ask who. She just said, "You can't stop it. Not completely, but you might be able to change the shape of it. Stretch it, shift it. That's what I'm trying to do." She looked at me like she'd known all along. "Then you're going to need help."
Chapter 8. The Pattern. They met in the back of the library after school. No one really went there anymore. Not since the heater broke, and the back room always smelled faintly like mold and metal. She brought a tablet. He brought the notebook he had started after the drowning. They spread everything out across the table like puzzle pieces that didn't belong to the same box. Death records, news clippings, missing person reports, paramedic logs. She had been collecting them for months. "Look at this," she said, tapping the screen. "Dylan Mendez, 16, drowned in a pool, gone for 3 minutes, came back. 2 weeks later, everyone in his friend group started getting into freak accidents. 2 of them died. 2 more moved out of state. Dylan disappeared." He read the article. No mention of the supernatural, just a tragic string of coincidences. But he saw it now. That pattern. "He saw something," he said. She nodded. "Or felt it, maybe even caused it." She flipped to another case. Soraya Belden, car crash, dead for 5 minutes, came back. Couldn't go near anyone for more than a few minutes without throwing up. Said people made her buzz. Her brother died in a house fire 3 days later. She swore she knew it was coming. He stared at the photos, at their eyes. Always something hollow in them. "These aren't just near-death stories," she said. "They're echoes, like something followed them back, and it didn't come empty-handed." He thought of the numbers, of how they hovered silently above people, ticking away like silent warnings, and how his sister's number had not moved. Yet. "Are any of them still alive?" he asked. "Some, but they're hard to find. Most stop talking about it, or they go off the grid entirely, like whatever touched them doesn't want them leaving a trail." She flipped to the last article. This one wasn't about a teen. It was about a woman. Revived after a lightning strike. She'd reportedly started predicting accidents at work. Then she vanished. The last line of the article was circled in red on the screen. She told her sister, "Time sticks to people. Some of us can see it. The rest of us only feel it when it's already run out." He sat back in his chair, spine cold. Something was happening here. Something bigger than just him. A power that tied death to time, and time to memory, and memory to people you loved most. He opened his notebook and wrote a new word on the top of the next page. Anchor. "What's that?" she asked. "If time can move," he said, "then maybe people can anchor it. Maybe something about them can change how fast it flows." She looked at him, eyes narrowing. "You think your sister is an anchor?" He nodded, and for the first time, he realized the truth in that word. She wasn't just someone he needed to save. She was the reason he came back at all.
Chapter 9. The Test. He waited until the house was empty. His mom had left for groceries. His sister was at piano lessons. He had about an hour, maybe less, but that was enough. It had to be. He didn't know exactly what he was doing, but he knew he couldn't just wait and watch the numbers run out. So he started small. He opened her bedroom door and sat on the edge of her bed. Everything felt familiar. Her books stacked unevenly, her stuffed animals piled in a corner like a forgotten army, the faint scent of her shampoo in the air. He focused, tried to remember everything she ever said that made him laugh, everything she did that made him furious, every little moment that tied her to him like thread. He pulled out the bracelet she gave him last year. Handmade, ugly, perfect. He closed his eyes and whispered her name just once, and then he looked up. The number was there. 1 day, 11 hours, 02 minutes. Still falling, still steady. He clenched his fists. "Come on," he muttered. "Move!" Nothing. So he tried something else. He grabbed her sketchbook from the shelf, opened to the page she always said was her favorite, the one she drew after their dad got sick. It was a messy charcoal storm cloud, with a small girl sitting beneath it, smiling. She called it, "Hope Looks Like This." He stared at it, let the memory of that week fill his chest. The way she sat beside him when no one else did. The way her fingers smudged every line until it looked like 1,000 storms in one. And then he looked up again. 1 day, 11 hours, 03 minutes. He blinked. The number had moved, only by a minute, maybe even less. But it had gone up. His heart slammed against his ribs. It worked. He didn't know how, or why, or if it would last. But for one impossible second, time had bent in his favor. He stood up, dizzy, elated, terrified. He grabbed his notebook and scribbled it down. Memory equals shift. Connection equals anchor. But before he could finish, the door slammed downstairs. His sister was home early. He shoved the notebook under his bed, kicked the sketchbook back in place, and froze just as she stepped into the hallway. She stared at him, one eyebrow raised. "Why do you look like you just committed a crime?" He laughed too quickly. I spilled something." "Uh-huh." She walked past him and flopped onto the couch, started talking about piano practice and how her teacher smelled like expired yogurt. Her voice was so normal, so easy. He sat beside her, heart pounding, pretending to listen. And then he looked up. The number had shifted again. 1 day, 11 hours, 06 minutes. But something else had too. For the first time, he felt it, like the air behind him had turned heavy, like something was watching. Not her, not anyone in the room. Something else. He didn't turn around. He just stared at the number and realized he wasn't the only one who noticed it move.
Chapter 10. The Watcher. At first, it was just a feeling, a cold shift in the air, a hush that didn't belong, like a window had been left open in a room with no doors, the kind of silence that waited. He didn't say anything about it, not to her, Not to the girl from the library, not even to himself. He tried to focus on the numbers, on the hope he'd felt when the timer moved, even just a little. But it was getting harder to think, harder to breathe, because every time he looked at his sister now, it felt like someone else was looking too. That night, it got worse. He woke up at 3:11 a.m., not from a dream, not from a sound, just awake, eyes wide, breath shallow. His room was dark, completely still, until it wasn't. There, at the foot of his bed, something stood. He didn't see it all at once. It was like his eyes had to adjust to what shouldn't be there, like his brain refused to shape it. It wasn't a person, not really. It was thin, almost too tall, with a posture that bent forward slightly, like it was leaning into him without moving at all. Its face, if it had one, was not a face, more like the idea of a face, smudged and flickering like an image burned too long on a screen. No eyes, but it was staring. He couldn't move. He wanted to scream, but his throat felt locked. His body was ice again, just like the lake. And then he realized something worse. The numbers. They were everywhere. Not just above its head, but circling it, orbiting it like satellites. Dozens of glowing red timers, some counting down in seconds, others holding steady in months or years, each one pulsing faintly, silently. It was made of time, or it fed on it. He shut his eyes. When he opened them again, it was gone. But the room still felt colder than it should have, and the corner where it stood, that space never warmed back up. The next morning, he went to the girl in the library. He told her everything. She listened, without interrupting, then nodded once, slowly, like she had been expecting this. She said, "We call it the Watcher. Some people who come back, they see it, eventually." "What is it?" he asked, barely able to breathe. She didn't answer for a long time. Then she said, "I think it's what keeps time running, or what collects it when it stops." He stared at her. "So it knows about me? It knows about all of us. And my sister?" She looked away. "It doesn't stop for anyone."
Chapter 11. The Warning. The Watcher didn't speak. It never had. It didn't need to. But that night, something changed. He found it waiting for him in the hallway. Not his bedroom this time, not a dream. It was real, present, almost closer than before. The same tall, bending shape, the same blurred face that hurt to look at. But now, its presence carried something else, a weight. He couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't even look away. And then it lifted one hand, slowly, as if offering something invisible. Above its palm, a number formed. Not glowing red like the others, but white, sharp, cold. And it wasn't over anyone's head. It was over his.
The timer began ticking down. He staggered backward, chest tight. No, but the watcher didn't react. It just watched. And when he blinked, the number vanished, but not the chill it left behind. He collapsed into his room, slamming the door shut. His hands trembled. His breath came in sharp pulls. He knew what it meant. He'd interfered. He'd changed the count. He'd broken something, even slightly, and the watcher had noticed. And now he was on the clock. The next morning, he didn't tell anyone. Not the girl, not his sister. He couldn't. He spent the day differently, moved slower, paid attention. He noticed how his sister's laugh sounded like wind chimes when she wasn't trying to be funny, how she chewed the end of her pencil while thinking, how her socks never matched. He noticed how the sun looked like melted gold through the windows, how dust floated when no one stirred the air, how time could feel like a living thing when you knew it was about to run out. She asked if he was okay. He nodded, smiled, and for a second he forgot there was a countdown hanging over his head. That night he found a note under his door, folded twice, written in her handwriting, the girl from the library. I saw it too. I think you're next. If you're going to save her, now's the time.
Chapter 12. The Choice. He didn't sleep. Not that night. Probably not ever again. The Watcher had started following him. Not always visibly, but in moments, in shadows, in reflections. He'd see the shape flicker just behind him in the microwave door. The gleam of white numbers flashing briefly in a darkened window. A tall silhouette outside the school gates, still as a monument. It wasn't chasing him. It was waiting for him to choose. The girl from the library met him by the lake, the same one he'd fallen into, the one that took him, the one that gave him back. Her breath steamed in the cold air. She didn't smile. "How long do you have?" she asked. 3 minutes now, he said, not looking at her. Maybe less. She didn't gasp, didn't cry. She just said, "Then we don't have time to waste." They sat by the edge of the water. He held a page torn from his notebook. On it, he had written everything. What he'd learned, what he'd seen, the rules he thought might be real, the shifts, the test, the watcher, the moment her countdown changed. It's all connection, emotion, memory, love. That's what bends the time. And what breaks it? She asked. He didn't answer. The wind picked up. He looked at the frozen lake. It shimmered under the moonlight, still and silent. The place where he died. The place he woke up with borrowed breath. "You don't have to do this," she said. He shook his head. "No, I do." He stood outside his sister's bedroom door one last time. She was already asleep. Her soft breathing reached him through the crack in the door. So did the faint hum of her nightlight, still shaped like a fox. He didn't open the door. He didn't need to. Instead, he reached into his jacket and pulled out the bracelet she made him, the one he never stopped wearing. He held it to his chest. Then, slowly, deliberately, he looked up. The number above her head was still ticking. 47 seconds. Tears welled in his eyes. Then, without flinching, he whispered, "Take mine." The watcher appeared, not from shadows, not from silence, but from time itself, like the seconds paused to let it in. It stood beside him, face unreadable, arms at its sides. He didn't move. The numbers shifted, not hers, his. Her timer froze. His own blinked into view above his head. A perfect trade. He sat on the hallway floor, breathing slowly. Inside, she stirred in her sleep, then settled. The countdown above her head vanished. His remained. He smiled through the tears, eyes growing heavier. Not for fear, not for regret, but for peace. He'd done what he came back to do, and this time, when the cold took him, he didn't fight it.
Final chapter. The 8-minute rule. A whisper, not a scream. A ripple, not a splash. She woke up to silence. For a moment, the world felt strangely still, like the pause between lightning and thunder. Then the Fox nightlight blinked off and on again. She rubbed her eyes. Outside her door, the hallway was empty, but warm. Somehow warmer than it had been in days. She stood up, looked around. Something felt lighter, like a pressure had lifted, like a countdown she didn't know she had been under was suddenly gone. She walked quietly to the end of the hallway. His room was open, the covers untouched, the window cracked slightly. Cold air whispered through the gap. She didn't know why she started crying, only that something was missing, something important. Across town, the girl from the library found a small envelope at her locker. No name, no address, just one word on the front, in his handwriting. Remember. Inside was the page from his notebook, the one that listed the rules, the theories, the patterns, and at the bottom, a final note written in faint pencil. Time doesn't care who we are, but love rewrites the rules. She pressed her forehead to the locker door, closed her eyes, and felt something like goodbye. A week later, someone found his bracelet on the edge of the frozen lake, wrapped around the wrist of a half-buried figure in the ice, eyes closed, peaceful. The official report said hypothermia, accidental fall, but she knew better. He didn't fall, he traded. And somewhere, just beyond where time lives, the watcher stood still, holding a single white second in its hand, unspent, unmoving, eternal. He was frozen for 8 minutes, but what he did with the ones after was enough to save a lifetime. The end.
And that was Frozen for 8 minutes. Thank you for listening to this haunting journey through life, death, and everything in between. I hope this story made you feel something, maybe even question how much can change in just 8 minutes.
If you enjoyed this audiobook, don't forget to like, share, or leave a comment. Your support helps bring more stories like this to life. Until next time, stay curious, stay brave, and never stop listening.